Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Lounge radio show, where we expose the myths of entrepreneurship and release the weight of it all. Real people, real issues, and real talk with expert solutions. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show as we welcome our host, Alicia Brown, the Joy Guru.
Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of the Entrepreneur's Lounge radio show and podcast. And especially at a time like this, I've brought you two guest entrepreneurs who have organizations that you might not readily think about as a business, but definitely during these different times, we need them and we need their expertise. So tonight, from nonprofit to church, we will talk about the different complexities and things that are going on that have to be considered for those two organizations.
Elder Deloris Pettaway is a native Virginian born in Newport News. She is the oldest daughter of Alberta Worsley Taft and Warren Worsley Sr. She is currently an ordained elder and serves as co-pastor beside her husband, Apostle David D. Pettaway, at Park Place Baptist Church in Hampton, Virginia. Elder Deloris Pettaway is the proud mother of two children, grandmother of three, godmother of two, and spiritual mother of two. She is a graduate of Commonwealth College and attended the Evans Smith School of Theology Extension Program and is continuing her education. She is a certified facilitator for Strengthening Families and a national facilitator for adults and children against violence. In 1992, Elder Deloris Pettaway founded the Crusading Outreach Ministry, a 501c3 organization designed to meet the needs of the underprivileged and at-risk youth. The ministry received the 2002 Catherine Gale Award, which recognizes community contributions directed at street ministry and feeding the homeless. She ministered in the Newport News City Jail with Southeastern Correctional Ministry from 1995 until 2001. For 22 years, she preached and served people on the corner of 29th and Jefferson Avenue, Newport News, Virginia, with street ministry. She also ministered in radio on the Healing Word broadcast for 6 years. Today, Elder Deloris Pettaway is the author of 4 books: Destiny's God Plan in Motion, Destiny's Spoken Word, God Says 31-Day Journal, and What is God Saying to You? A Prayer and Meditation Journal. She's working on her 5th and 6th book. She invests her time in counseling her congregants, officiating ceremonies, keynote speaking, nonprofit consulting through her business DDP Services, also workshops, retreats, and moving the 28-year nonprofit she founded, Crusading Outreach Ministry 501c3, forward. She focuses her attention on sharing the gospel, and her life is dedicated to improving the lives of her fellow citizens. And by the way, when we hear that bio, I think the last line sums it up. Your life is dedicated to improving the lives of your fellow citizens, and that is not just limited to the church. So those, listening to us today, we want to focus on your business as a nonprofit consultant and author. What is the difference between a nonprofit and then a regular business?
Well, it's a lot of difference. Okay, one of the things that I always say that because when I first started the nonprofit, we had a small business, my husband and I. And so we really understood, we thought that we could just do what we did to start the business. And we got our EIN number and the name, sent it to the IRS. But then later on, as we tracked it, we realized that we were way away from what it should have been. And I've learned that the language and the paperwork for the nonprofit is so totally different, especially if you're trying to work towards the 501c3 status. It's just, the language is different. The paperwork that is required by the government and required by the state is different.
Now, when you say 501c3 status, because there's different statuses, what is a 501c3 status and what's the advantage of having it?
But the 501c3 status give you the ability to receive benefits from basically anyone that can offer you support. Their time or whatever can be accounted for at the end of the year for taxes because it's called tax exempt. And so most people that contribute to the 501c3, they know that at the end of the year, their monies can be subtracted from the taxes and give them credit.
Okay, so I would say the average person, I'm assuming, that says they want to start a nonprofit, they really want the 501c3 status so that people that want to donate to the nonprofit can get the tax exemption. Am I understanding that?
Yes, because another thing that happened to us when we first got our state of incorporation, I really thought we were set. I really thought we were set to go. So I sat down and I mailed out a whole bunch of letters to all kinds of companies. I still have the letters today to remind me. And they were courteous and they sent a letter reply back to me, say, I love what you're trying to do. I love what you are doing. But because you are not, and I didn't understand at that time what that meant, the 501c3 status, they said, but because you are not 501c3, we cannot help you at this time. And so that caused my husband and I to research. We started researching what was a 501c3 because at the time we started, especially Black people, we did not know what 501c3 status was. We thought you worked from passion because we were in the church.
So you can have a nonprofit, but it's another level that you have to go through to get the 501c3 status.
Exactly, because when I started with the state, I was nonprofit, but I wasn't incorporated enough to go forward with the paperwork to the IRS. So I had to change all of my paperwork when I decided that I understood what the 501c3 was. I had to change all my paperwork.
Okay, now I know you're a nonprofit consultant and your nonprofit, Crusading Outreach Ministry, is 28 years old. But for those of us who are business owners, you know, we understand business plans and all of that information. But honestly, in most states, you can go to your, you know, city official's office, get your little business license as long as you pay the fee. And like Virginia has the State Corporation Commission. So in addition to us going to like our commissioner's office and buying a business license, we'll pay the fee to the state to also have that business license, whether it's a LLC or incorporated. And that's it. In theory, on paper, you're now a legal business.
Exactly.
You have to have a strategy and all of that. But it's a matter of hours a lot of times as far as just little paperwork to be official. So that's not the same way with a nonprofit. You can't just turn it that quick.
You can't turn it that quick at all. The paperwork, even for the incorporation, is different. You don't even get your EIN number to after the article of incorporation have been established.
Wow.
Normally, it's the other way around.
Right, I can go right now and get the EIN number in a minute.
Right, but I have to wait until you get the EIN number in order to put it on the paperwork to apply for your articles of incorporation.
Wow. So from your explanation, I'm seeing it's completely different. Now, can you have a nonprofit and can you have a business as well?
You can have both.
Okay.
You can have both. Because for years, I just stopped lately somewhat not working. I have two, just like now they have the outreach ministry and DDP services. So you can do two, but you need to keep them separated.
So there's another layer I'm understanding here. You can have a business, you can have the nonprofit. Nothing wrong with having both. But from what I'm understanding, it's not as simple as I have this business and that's what we do. And I want this other piece here so I can get money from people. So we're going to do the same thing over at the nonprofit, but it's just going to have a different name.
Right, because then I need a different bank account. Everything is different. Whatever I do for the nonprofit, Has nothing to do with my business at all. The IRS would frown on it. They say sometimes it's okay to say you're going to add it to your LLC, but if you read up on the paperwork, it's not a lot of people that's able to pass that. Most of the time they reject that because they see that as you saying you want to serve the community, but actually when you saying LLC, you're talking about income. So you basically saying, I want income. And that's how they look at it.
Okay. So, I want you, while we have your expertise, I want you to answer this question for me, because I hear it often and people get confused. Businesses are for profit. We get that. The whole point is you have to make money. There's bills, there's this, there's that. But when you're talking about a nonprofit, I mean, the description basically says nonprofit.
Right.
Don't you have to be profitable? I mean, doesn't a nonprofit have bills and expenses? So what is the whole mission of a nonprofit? Why is it not for profit, although you have to be profitable in order to run the nonprofit?
Well, one of the questions that they ask, it's a paragraph that you have to fill out, and they want to know what your purpose is. Mm-hmm. So if you're saying that you want to serve the community and you have a reason for serving, when I first started, my whole goal was to feed the homeless.
Okay.
And then I wanted to feed people that were not able to sustain a home. It didn't matter what it was. If you couldn't make groceries, if you were hungry, I was going to make sure that you had food. And so from that, I learned that one of the things that they want to understand from you, if you say that I want to take care of the community at large, right? Mm-hmm. But then on the other side, you're trying to make income. They know that the business has to be sustained by finances, but they want to know in a certain amount of years that basically everything that you're doing is towards building the business. Because even when you have your own business, you have to build it up. When you get income, you're still trying to support and sustain your business. They want to know, are you trying to put this money in your pocket? Are you trying to actually serve the community? They know that you are running, and most of the times they have a place where you have to put the income that you have.
Okay.
And you have to show. And they know eventually you're going to make money, and they make a way for you to show that.
Just from what you're sharing so far, it sounds like a lot of strategy has to go into this. Because one of the things I mentioned earlier, although in a lot of states it's easy on paperwork to start the business, you always have the IRS monitoring you. So if you just, I started this on a whim, legally I'm paying my fee every year to have the legal entity of business, but maybe I really don't do anything until year 2 or 3. Or maybe year 4, I decide to really do something with this name that I'm paying for. The IRS is always watching you. So after a certain number of years, they're going to say that business, they're going to change your status. And instead of really being recognized as a business with them, they're saying what you're doing is a hobby. Because when they look at your tax reports over the years, you're not doing anything generating revenue. So It sounds like, I would say new business owners, they don't know that. So they're thinking I'm good because I'm paying my fees or whatever. At some point I'm going to do this, or at some point I'm going to do this. But they don't realize the IRS is watching. So after a number of years, and each state's different, they're going to take that business status that you've been paying for, and they're going to flip it to the status of a hobby because you're really not operating like a business.
Exactly.
So it sounds like with a nonprofit, you have those regulations, but it sounds like maybe you might have a little bit of extra ones, or maybe it's more stringent. Are they still monitoring you?
They are monitoring you from day one. Wow. They're monitoring you, and sometimes after they give you the 501c3 status, you might be on trial from 3 years to 7 years. Okay. A lot of times you don't recognize that. When we first started, they sent me a letter that I didn't quite understand because I knew that I was 501c3 status. Mm-hmm. And then one day they came back to me with the letter, and they needed receipts of everything that I had. I had to sit down. Every canned good had $1 cost to it. Everything that I did, every flyer, anything that I was doing for fundraising, I had to send them a copy. So they are watching you and they want to know, especially the first 3 years, are you really doing what you say that you're going to do?
Wow. So I see why, we have nonprofit consultants and really their value, because it's a lot of little details and intricacies that the average person just doesn't know and they're not thinking about.
Exactly, because we have been in with organizations that lost their status.
Wow.
And it's hard to get it back.
Yeah, business license, you can just, new name. People do all the time. They close here, they go in a new name, but it just really sounds like there's a lot of liabilities with that. If it's
Exactly.
done right.
Exactly. Now you protected when you are a 501c3, you are protected by the law. People can't just sue us any kind of way because we are protected, especially if you're on the board of directors. You are protected from any liability just automatically, but you will have to have that status.
So being a minority-owned nonprofit, and for you, since it's been 28 years, you've seen a lot of different changes,
Yes.
different trends. What would you say were some of the challenges you had to overcome as a minority founder of a nonprofit?
Well, I had two minorities going against me. First, I was a woman. And at that time, being a woman and you were in charge of something, they didn't look well at you.
Okay.
And so I had to go from that. And then I was Black, and then it was small. So I had to keep fighting. A lot of times I would go to different places to get information. They would make sure that they didn't talk to me, but they would talk to my husband.
Wow.
They will hold the computer with the information facing him and not facing me.
Okay.
Not knowing that at that time that our relationship, whatever they taught him, he was going to share it with me. And I had to learn, if I need to know what I have to do to run this nonprofit, whatever it took. If I had to go, if I went somewhere that I thought I could get the information and they didn't give it to me, I would come back home and share it with my husband. And he said, okay, I got it. He made the appointment. He said, come on, let's go. We'll go. And he would keep saying, she's the one, she's the founder, she's the director. But they wouldn't look at me. They wouldn't talk to me. They would talk to him. And so I had to learn, in order to get the best, that's okay. I can sit here, I can hear what I need to hear, and I'm going to get the rest of the information from my husband.
Okay. So just like with business, and I know there's a lot of solo entrepreneurs, but just like with business, it's the people that you work with and the people that are part of your team that makes a big difference, especially in sometimes just getting information that's needed, and you come back to the table, and go forward with that. Can you have a nonprofit start with just yourself?
No, you're going to have someone on the board of directors. That's required by law.
And from your wisdom, a lot of times people are building things and they're looking to leave a legacy. Would you say that you should, especially if you're small and just starting out, your board of directors should be primarily your family and friends?
Well, at first I was saying to people to do family, but the world is changing. Family is not always cooperating with you now, especially with business. So my thought is to have someone that you can truly trust. The reason that you're in the position that you are in is because I trust you. I have shared with you my vision. I've shared with you what I'm doing. And so as time goes on, I'm trusting you to do what I've shared with you all through the years. And so it's a trust issue now with the board of directors. And so I would say have someone, if it's in your family, that you can really trust. And so I have a strategic way of making sure the people that's on my board of directors that's close to me will have my back. So it's a two-way street. We are helping each other. So you have to make sure that, and anybody that know me, I'm very careful and have been really, really, really blessed. We have some awful stories to tell you that we've been through. I've trained a lot of people and they have tried to take our ministry down, but we were able to come back. So that have taught me be very, very careful who's on your board of directors.
So when you're looking at current events, and we know we're in the middle of a pandemic, we have protests going on, we have a lot of things in our world where people need help. What would your advice be to other minorities, young people, just anyone that wants to do more, wants to be of help in these different areas, have a passion towards that? What would your advice be to them as far as, should they start a nonprofit? Should they focus on business? What should they do?
Depends on what they want to do, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because the nonprofit, it is a lot of work. If you want to help people and you have the desire to do that, you're going to have to keep that in front at all times. It comes with a lot of complexities. It comes with a lot of hindrance, obstacles. You're going to have to know in your heart, this is what you want to do. And no matter what, you're not going to give up. And you don't let people tell you what you can and cannot do. A lot of people told us we would not last 6 months. Well, it's 28 years. That's why I was so excited about the 25 years, because when we got to 25, I'm like, if we made it this far, it's nothing now that can hinder. So my advice to the young people and to anyone that want to talk about the nonprofit, know what you really want to do and don't let anything stop you from doing what you need to do.
Well, Elder, we thank you so much for your wealth of information. And how can those listening actually connect with you?
They can get in touch with me through my website, ddpservices.org, or they can reach me by my phone, which is 757-408-0662.
So they can go to crusadingoutreach.org for the ministry, the crusade. And then for more information about consulting and things like that, then go to ddpservices.org. Thank you for this information. And I do encourage our listeners to reach out to you and your expertise so they can have guidance on how to launch their visions and dreams.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have a book idea that is so amazing that not only could it solve world peace, but it would be the perfect solution to everyone's problem, and it would make you a millionaire overnight? I mean, do you have this idea that would be the world's next bestseller, and everyone needs to read it? Well, I hate to burst your bubble, but no such book idea exists, nor ever will. This is Alicia Brown, the CEO of Fruition Publishing Concierge Services. What I can tell you is the book idea that you have is the perfect solution for someone who's desperately searching for it. But first, your book needs to be done. So visit us today at Fruition Publishing Concierge Services, which is at fruitionpublishing.com, where we'll show you how to take your concept from vision to fruition. It's time to get her done. fruitionpublishing.com.
Apostle David D. Pettaway was born in Newport News, Virginia. He is the oldest son of Reverend Dr. Jesse L. Pettaway and Mrs. Letty Pettaway. He currently resides in Hampton, Virginia. He is wed to Elder Deloris Pettaway and the father of 2 children, grandfather of 3, and godfather of 2. He is the pastor of Park Place Baptist Church in Hampton, Virginia, and he ministers at the Pinecroft Seniors and Disabled Home and the Coliseum Nursing Home in Hampton, Virginia. Apostle David Pettaway is a graduate of New Mount Olive Baptist Church of Evangelist Training and attended Richmond, Virginia Seminary Extension Program and is continuing his education. He received his call and salvation at an early age. He was licensed to preach the gospel on September 5th, 1995, and was ordained on June 30th, 1996. He conducted radio ministry on the Healing Word broadcast for 6 years. He's on the board of directors for Crusading Outreach Ministry Inc., a 28-year nonprofit, and served as the minister for the street ministry for 20 years. He ministered in the Newport News City Jail with the Southeastern Correctional Ministry from 1995 until 2001. He is continuously feeding and meeting the needs of the destitute and elderly. He founded and pastored House of the Living God Holy Church in 1997 through 2009 and was led by God back to his home church, Park Place Baptist Church in Hampton, Virginia. He writes a weekly publication, The Apostle Pen, as in the process of publishing his first book. So we want to welcome Apostle David Pettaway. And Apostle, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you. And how are you?
Doing
how are you
well.
all?
So we know that a lot of people don't look at church like a business.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the ways that a church operates where business knowledge and business principles are a must?
Well, we have to make sure the bills get paid and paid on time, just like everybody else's house. I have to decide which ones get paid first. What's the priority, along with the proceeds that we have. We have to work according to our budget, and sometimes that budget is not met, and so we have to just try to stretch things and make arrangements just like everybody else. And so sometimes it's a challenge, but we have to always step up to the plate. We just can't just let it fall by the wayside because there's more than just you involved. And It's just like your home. You may not care about anybody else, but somebody else is living in your house. And so, and sometimes, the church is just a little different from your home. The reason I say that is because if the parent, the father or the mother or whoever's in charge, if they don't care about what's going on in the home, they could just walk off and leave. And that would leave everybody else, to fend for themselves. And so the church is that way because if the pastor walks away, then everybody has to fend. They have to form committees and do certain things. But so if you care about yourself and you care about others that are around you, then you just can't give up and walk away. You have to stay there and maintain no matter what. And even if you're the only person there, still you have to maintain.
I want to focus on that. Because just like we'll use the example of a nonprofit, it says nonprofit, so it's not a for-profit business, but it has to be profitable. So you have a church, you're not in the business to sell services and products.
Right.
And we know that, people that attend the church do tithes and offerings, but the point is, whether enough money comes in or not, the church still has expenses that must be paid.
That's correct.
What type of expenses does a church have?
Well, the church has the same expenses as your house. This is the house of God. So the same things it takes to run a house, it takes to run a church. We have electric, we have gas, we have water, sewage, sanitation, and taxes. And just because we're a nonprofit, that doesn't mean that we are exempt to pay anything. And so we have to maintain those bills and utilities. When we look at a church, we have to also look at the fact that whatever it takes for you to survive, it takes for that church to survive.
Even to the point, some people may not realize a church has insurance. Because
Exactly.
you have people coming in just like a business. Now, some business owners don't have business insurance. But the point is, someone can slip and fall. I don't care how well you maintain things, accidents happen. And then if you don't have insurance with the church gets sued, and now we have liability issues. So you also, in addition to those other expenses, you have to have things like insurance. So there's a lot of considerations, it sounds like, that the pastor in the church has to think about, although in a lot of people's minds, this isn't a business. It's almost like you're in a bit of a precarious position because the mission isn't to make money and sell products and services, but you have the expenses just like a business that does. So what are some of the considerations you would say as being the leader or pastor of a church that, you have to use your judgment for?
Well, I think about what you just said, and along as insurance, I don't care what kind of gift of prophecy that you possess, you can still not foretell everything that's going to happen.
Yes.
You can't see what's going to happen. And so because of that, that's where the insurance comes in. The insurance comes in not only to protect the church, but it also protects you as well.
Yes.
So we have to take care of those things in order to maintain a healthy relationship. And, you talked about the expenses of the church, and you talked about everything that has to go on. And, we have to realize that even in this society, we have to protect ourselves and be careful of what we do and how we do it. We live in the world. We lived in the world. And so we use godly principles to live in the world. And that includes the business world. That includes you being whole spiritually as well as physically, safe and straight. And the only difference is we use biblical principles to maintain, to be in this world that we live in today.
I like that. So it's not like some people might associate with. Whole goal and aspiration is to have a booming television ministry, the biggest church or multiple churches, and to have luxury vehicles. And what's funny about that, even when you look at churches that are extremely large, one assumes that financially, well, they're good because they got a lot of people to donate. But at the same time, does your expenses increase? So just because you have a bunch of numbers and a huge church, again, like a business, those expenses are a lot larger. And if their tithing, their contributions drop, like for instance, coronavirus, people are not even coming to those facilities anymore. So a lot of times funds go down just because they're not physically there and contributing virtually or whatever you have set up.
That's correct.
Then go away. If you have a mortgage on that building, a lease on that building, that didn't go away. Your utilities, certain things, maybe it's less usage, but you still have to pay the bill. So it just doesn't sound as simple as sometimes people look and perceive it as. You just get up to a mic with a good suit on and, you sound good. And that's pretty much all you have to do to be a pastor or leader of a church. But we're hearing the backside plus all the other things you have to do as well. So it sounds like there's a lot more to this than a lot of times people think about when they think about a church. One of the things I want to talk about is actually the pandemic situation with coronavirus. What type of position did that put you in before the governor got into it for our state and put certain mandates? What type of judgment did you have to use as far as making the choice what type of service you were going to have, if or when you were going to allow parishioners to come in? What type of judgment did you have to use for that?
Well, as a man of God, we listen to his guidelines in order to walk our life, and it's a day-to-day ongoing thing. It's not like he gives us a plan one time for the rest of your life. You have to walk daily, and the purpose of the church is to walk daily according to his instructions. And so it's the purpose of the church is to point people to Christ spiritually and physically, to teach them how to walk in this physical world. And that means to educate in cleanliness and safety. So with that being said, we have to teach them how to utilize safe distances in everything that we do. And so with the pandemic, the virus going on, we have to be safe, and I have to hear from God to protect myself. And so if I protect myself, And as I mentioned earlier, we being head of the church, if I protect myself, then my care is for others. And if I'm to be, I know we just did Father's Day, but if I'm to be like the father of the church, I have to care about the children in the church. And so as far as that goes concerned, I have to make sure they're protected, just like a father or a parent, a mother would do. I have to make sure they're protected, as well as myself. And I wouldn't allow any of the sheep to infect other sheep. And so we have to use that kind of judgment and just plain good common sense, because that is one of the things that he gives us is common sense. And so why would I lead people into a place where they weren't safe, weren't secure, and that's our goal. That's our goal. We want to be safe and secured. We want to be safe and secured, and we also want to be safe and not stupid.
Okay.
So with that being said, we just want to continue to do what we need to do and to hear from him.
Okay, because I did notice that for your facility, you actually had closed it down before the governor gave that mandate.
Right.
Even when he allowed people to come back, you did not open up. And right. I know that you had said that each person must follow their own conscience and they must hear from God and do what God told them. But I also noticed that for people that really didn't follow the mandate, we saw families of people that were affected. And we saw people die, leaders dying that had these services. So we saw how, some people made that judgment call early. This isn't safe. I don't want to, get anyone sick. We need more instruction before we go ahead and just continue on business as usual. And then you saw some people that said, well, we're just going to continue on, and then take it seriously. And they put all these people's lives at danger because, let's be honest, in a pandemic, you don't know everything.
Right.
You don't know how it's going to play out, and you get this or you get this. But again, using judgment, taking certain precautions really can be the matter of life and death.
Mm-hmm. And, the one thing I want to say, there is a big difference between conviction and compliance. We a lot of people in the faith-based community, they stand by their convictions, okay? But they don't want to be compliant to what God says. And by being compliant, he says, honor me. And when something comes around like this pandemic or any other virus or flu or whatever comes, he says, keep clean, keep safe, and be aware of what's around you. And if you're doing that, you're being compliant. And not just saying, my faith gonna hold me, but everybody knows that the word says faith without works is dead. So if you don't work to get you a mask and work to stay distant, you're gonna die.
Oh, well.
And so that's just it. So we have to listen to common sense. It's just like your parents. Your parents love you, and you have trust in them, and they care about you. They want you to have what you want to have and be safe. And so if you're 12 years old and say, I want to drive the car, they love you, but because they love you, they're not going to let you drive their car because it's unsafe and you're inexperienced. So, that's the same thing with the church. I may love you and want to give you everything and want you to be around your friends, but if I care about you, I'm not going to let you do that.
Okay. So again, we're seeing another principle of business here. That there is a such thing as compliance, and you may be in a position where you can make the decisions. And some positions, you're in a position where you have the final word. But there is compliance. There are legal considerations. There's business principles in addition to the God factor. What are you hearing for the Lord as a spiritual leader to do?
That's right.
So these are some of the things that oftentimes when people look at churches, they don't even think about it. And I think sometimes as we go through different generations, we see different models where, again, we're seeing more of the live streams. We're seeing more of the TV ministries that maybe 20 years ago wasn't that big of a deal, but now it is. And that's one of the other questions I wanted to ask you is that, like anything else, just like with business, there are trends, things change. So again, speaking of judgment and critical thinking, how do you make the call of how you're going to change your church to accommodate trends or what the parishioners want versus what your vision and mission is?
So with this going on, this is just my personal belief, and this is what I believe that God's saying to me. When this pandemic came about, nobody really knew how to respond to it. And I look at it not just as a disease that was affecting people. I look at it as he was trying to tell us something. And with him trying to tell us something, he was saying, well, according to me, so I'm going to send my son sometimes to come and redeem everybody. That is the purpose of the church. So that is the purpose, to prepare them for what's going on. And so with that being said, we have to think of different ways to reach people. In other words, like I said, this is me. He said, I'm coming soon and you're not prepared.
Okay.
Churches are full, but who's listening? So I want you to come up with different ways that you can reach people without everybody coming together in one spot, because you're only teaching the people that you can see. You're not thinking about the people that you can't see. And so you reach the world. So think of a different way to spread the gospel. We got Zoom, we got Facebook, we got all these other messages, we got telephones, we got that we can reach somebody, we got text, and all of these things we weren't really utilizing a lot. If you notice, the internet is full of live streaming now.
Yes.
It wasn't like that before the pandemic. And so people are using their brains, their minds that God gave them to expand the gospel. And so we know that with this, if this hadn't occurred, nobody would have been reaching out and stretching forth. Think about it.
Right. That's true, but I'm young, but still not that young, where I don't remember that, for my time growing up, the big thing was television ministry. So that it was no live streaming. So either you had all the money it took to be on TV, and it didn't matter whether, it was this huge national network. It could be the little bitty TV station down the street, but you had to have a lot of money to be able to pay them to get that spot on television. But those are your choices. You either went into a physical church, or it was a church that had enough money to get on some form of television. Now, every church can do that with a Facebook Live. They don't have to pay to be on someone's cable network and have thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and all this audio visual equipment and people employed that can do all of that. So even that is changing. And even whether people want to, it used to be a lot of times the older people, maybe they were sickly and it was a challenge to get to church. So they watch TV or they listen to maybe the conference call. But now you have people that they just want to watch it from home. They don't want to step in a building. So a lot of things we're seeing with time and technology has changed, and it has made it easier in one way to reach people, but then it's made it easier not to reach people.
And the other thing is, not just myself as a pastor, but we need to engage more of the youth, because we can only go but for so far, and we can only imagine and think of things so far, and so we need to engage the youth, because their minds can wrap around a lot more concept than we can, and they can get it out there. And one of the things that when I was reading about young entrepreneurs, I was reading about a young guy. He was like 10 at the time, and his name was Bishop Curry, I believe, and he was 10 years old, and he saw somebody die in a car, an infant die in a car, because someone had rolled the windows up and left the kid in the car. So So he said, I don't want that to happen. And that was in his neighborhood. He said, I don't want that to keep happening. So he invented a prototype at 10 years old and had it patented that he built a signal. He built a prototype out of clay and showed how it would work. And so when he patented it, they produced it with a 3D printer. And what it does is a sensor in the car that judges the body type, the body temperature of the car, and if it's a child in the seat. And what it does, it alerts the parents first, and then alerts authorities so that they can come. And he's 10 years old now. I mean, he patented in I think it was 2018, 2019. This is just recent. And so he did that. So his mind is thinking, look how long it takes. Look how many, it's about 37,000 infants that die in the car,
A year.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? And so, he thought of that. And I said that to say that the youth that can think about things like that, they can spread their knowledge to a point where we can't even imagine that.
Yes.
You can't imagine that. So I engage the young people. I try to engage them and encourage them to think of ways, to reach the people. And in our case, at the church, we need for them to think about ways that they can reach other young people to draw them into safety. Okay.
Right.
And so I don't want to just promote the fact that we're in the church. We are promoting just your soul, but we live everything from a biblical concept. So it's your mind, your spirit, your soul, your health, your well-being, and even the Bible teaches about business principles.
Yes, it does.
And so it tells you what to do. And so if you join into it and can think about what's going on, then you really getting the concept.
Yes.
And you can tell I'm actually not a traditional pastor, so I just stretch as far as I can stretch.
I know that's right. But it's funny because a lot of the very well-revered books, business books that have come out, have written on business, on biblical
principles.
Mm-hmm. It's not anything new, and it might be new to the reader, but they're actually drawing from the Bible. And then some of them will blatantly tell you, I'm drawing from the Bible, but those principles have been here. And truthfully, it doesn't even matter what your faith is. If you follow those principles, there's a certain measure of success you have. They're proven. So some of the best books, but one of the examples I use with book clients is look at the Bible. That is probably the best successful book on the market. It's translated in so many languages. It has withstood the test of time. There is probably no book that has sold out as much as the Bible is still selling. It's still being translated into multiple languages all around the world. Pieces of it is always used in speeches and just everything. And sometimes it's nothing to do with biblical. That they're not even preaching a sermon, but excerpts from it, examples from it are being pulled. So for authors, you think about, the length you want your book to go, the impact you want your book to have. The Bible is one of the best books out there for that because it has stood the test of time when other things have been pulled off the market. I don't think we have any book out there that has been translated in so many different languages around the world the way the Bible has, and no other book has tried to have been destroyed as many times as the Bible, and it's still here. So even from that part, from business, it is a great principle. It's a great guide to look at for what's being done for success. But Pastor, we thank you for the wealth of information you shared today. And how can our listeners follow you and reach out to you?
Well, they can reach us at parkplacebaptistchurch.org on our website. You can reach us at on our Gmail, parkplacebaptist711@gmail.com. You can also go to our Facebook page, Park Place Baptist Church Hampton, and look at some of the live streams that we do and things of that nature. You can contact us. The church is located at 711 Spruce Street in Hampton, 23661. call anytime. There's information on the website that you can get in contact with us. If you want to contribute to the ministry, there's a page where you can go to that as well. If you want to contribute some knowledge, some wisdom, some of the thoughts of your young minds, we really welcome you. We welcome you because, you know, we're going to be the richer, because this generation is your generation, and it's the one that's going to come to replace us. And so as we go on, we need people with wisdom and intelligence and bright ideas to continue to carry this word, and not only just the word of God, but the word of how to live prosperous in this world, being not of this world, but being in the world and learning how to live and go through it.
And thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Entrepreneur's Lounge, where we expose the myths of entrepreneurship and release the weight of it all. Real people, real issues, and real talk with expert solutions. Make sure you stay tuned to our Facebook page and thejoyguru.net for show updates, announcements, and to learn how you can be a guest on our show.